It's so easy to spend all our time worrying about what could go wrong if we try something new. But have you ever just stopped and asked the complete opposite question? What if it actually works out?
Oh man, we've all been there, haven't we? That 3:30 a.m. moment staring at the ceiling in the dark. You're all alone, and this question just hits you out of nowhere. You followed the script, you did what you were supposed to do, but is this really it?
That feeling usually comes from what we could call the trap of safety. It's the life that society, your family, maybe even a part of you, decided was the correct one. But what happens when that correct path starts to feel a lot less like a path and a lot more like a cage?
And here's what that safe path usually looks like. I mean, it sounds logical enough, right? Finish school, get into a bunch of debt to do it, find a job, and then spend the best years of your life just paying it all off. You grind all week for those 2 days on the weekend. Now look, for some people, this is great, but for a lot of us, it feels like living life on a loop.
And really, that's the whole point. If you're here listening to this, you probably feel this deep in your gut. You just know that you only get one shot at this whole life thing, and spending it on someone else's terms, well, that's just not going to cut it. You know you're meant for something else.
So what's stopping us? What is that invisible force that keeps us stuck on this path we don't even want to be on? Well, let's talk about your biggest and quietest enemy, your shrinking comfort zone.
On paper, the comfort zone sounds pretty amazing. It's this mental space where everything is familiar, it's easy, and you feel totally in control. Its entire job is to keep you safe and protected from anything unknown. But, and it's a big but, there's a catch.
And here's what that looks like in the real world. Inside the zone, that's staying in, binge-watching another series, dodging anything that feels new. But outside the zone, that's where all the good stuff happens. That's going to the gym, starting that project you've been thinking about, meeting new people. Pretty much every action you take falls into one of these two buckets.
And here is the brutal, honest truth about it. Your comfort zone is not your friend. It's a primal, ancient survival tool. It doesn't care one bit about your dreams, your happiness, or if you feel fulfilled. Its only job is to keep you safe by keeping you completely still.
And this is the real danger, the total paradox of comfort. The more you give into it, the more you stay inside, the smaller your world actually becomes. You know how it is. You skip the gym for a few days, and suddenly going back feels like climbing a mountain. You avoid a tough conversation, and the next one seems even more terrifying. Your comfort zone is actively shrinking around you every single day.
So, how do you even begin to fight back? Well, it doesn't start with some massive, scary leap. It actually starts with a simple but really powerful switch in your perspective. You have to consciously choose to see the world in a new way.
And here's your new game plan in 3 simple steps. First, every time you feel that resistance, that little voice telling you to retreat, reframe it. That's not a scary challenge, that's an opportunity to grow. Second, just start saying yes to things you know are good for you, especially when your brain is screaming no. And third, and this is a fun one, learn to turn that fear into excitement. That nervous feeling in your stomach, it's almost the exact same chemical reaction as excitement. So just start calling it excitement.
Okay, so we've decided to fight back. But that means we have to come face to face with the final boss, the one big obstacle that's standing in your way. We have to talk about fear.
This is it, isn't it? This is the question that just paralyzes us, the one that whispers in our ear every single time we think about taking a chance. But what if you fail? What if you go for it and just fall flat on your face?
So let's dig into what's really going on here. The fear isn't actually about the failure itself, losing some money or having a project not work out. It's an ego thing. You're afraid of what other people will think. You're afraid of how you'll look.
That fear that feels so real, for the most part, it's an illusion. It's built on a future perception, on a story you tell yourself that probably won't even happen. We imagine this total catastrophe, but the reality of failing is almost never as bad as the movie we play in our heads.
I absolutely love this metaphor. It perfectly describes most of the risks we face. From the shore, that new business or that big life change looks like a massive, terrifying ocean. It seems impossibly deep, but once you actually step into it, you realize it's only an inch deep. You can handle it.
So here's a new way to think about failure. Failure isn't a single moment in time. Failure is quitting. That's it. As long as you keep getting back up, as long as you keep learning and trying again, you physically can't fail. Every attempt is just another step forward.
And this brings us to the final and maybe the most important piece of the puzzle. We've been taught our entire lives to avoid risk, to run towards safety. But what if that's completely backward?
Just let that one sink in for a minute. The biggest risk you can take is to take no risks at all, because by playing it safe, you're risking something way worse than failure. You risk waking up in 5, 10, or 20 years in that same 3:30 a.m. moment wondering where your life went. You risk a life of regret, and that is a guarantee, not a possibility.
So let's be totally clear. This is not about being fearless. You are going to be scared. You might stumble. You might even fall down a few times. That's not a sign that you're on the wrong path. That is the path. That is the entire process of living a life that is actually yours.
So, I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. Forget the fear for a second and just imagine yourself a few years from now looking back. What risk will you be so glad that you had the courage to take today?